Hello everyone, I just thought I'd take a few minutes to go over my thoughts on the new Wavves album, Afraid of Heights, set to officially be released this upcoming Tuesday, March 26th. Wavves is a San Diego-based band started by Nathan Williams in 2008. They can take on a variety of styles including grunge, pop, and surf rock, and even psychedelia at times. The band currently consists of frontman Nathan Williams and drummer Stephen Pope, who took the last year or so to record the album and entirely self-finance it. Right off the bat, you can tell that these songs are taking on a more personal and intimate feel than their 2010 release King of the Beach. Their first two albums, which were both self-titled, took on a very lo-fi feel, very psychedelic, and pretty hard to distinguish the lyrics even. King of the Beach, on the other hand, released in 2010, felt very produced, extremely polished. Lots of music press really liked that album. I personally thought it was a little too in-your-face, a little too happy and cheery almost. And I also felt it got a little repetitive, and I don't know, it just was a little tiring. There were definitely standout tracks. I really liked the track Mickey Mouse from that album, because hey, look at all my walls. I'm a huge self-admitted Disney nerd. I also really liked the track Take on the World from that album. I really loved the bass line on that song. Afraid of Heights, on the other hand, really dials back the studio trickery, and they really kind of almost take on a grungy Nirvana feel throughout a lot of this album. The album starts out with a very sort of in-your-face, kind of carnival-like atmosphere in the song Sail to the Sun. It's just this intro alone that I feel is one of the more effects-heavy parts of the whole album. Once you get past the first 45 seconds or so, Sail to the Sun becomes a really distinct classic Wavves song. It's all about using drugs as a form of escapism, and the sun is a metaphor, which will come up later in the album. And overall, it's a pretty solid lead-in. But then track 2 comes along, and that's the song Demons to Lean On. And I believe the band just released a music video for the song just a couple weeks ago or something like that. This is a very catchy, hooky little number. This is where the Nirvana really starts to come in, and I'm going to be making the Nirvana comparison quite a lot in this review because I really feel like that's sort of what the band was going for this time around. But I mean, you can tell with the guitar chords, and it's just kind of got this pace to it. It just drives along. It's really unlike a lot of previous Wavves stuff. It's got a much more gritty feel and much more toned down from King of the Beach's overly psychedelic and, fun atmosphere. Tracks 3 and 4, Mystic and Lunge Forward, are really kind of more transitional tracks. Mystic in particular has a feeling almost like Flying from the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour or something like that, where it's just kind of put into the album in a very particular place to just move it along. It's pretty instrumental. And then Lunge Forward is not my favorite song on the album. It's a little unmemorable. I have to admit, I'm always a sucker for songs that are derived from nostalgia. And so Dog, which kind of takes on a 50s almost bubblegum pop sort of feel, really hit home with me. And I really liked how the theme of the song was about codependence. And, it's just one of those songs where it's really happy and cheery, but on the inside it's got a darker context behind it. I hate to say it, but there's a few songs on this album, track 7, Paranoid being a perfect example, where it just kind of feels like a stock filler sort of Wavves track with not much going on. The structure's really simple, the guitar's really basic. It's just kind of got this sort of very, very kind of cliche surf rock attitude going on. And Paranoid in general is more of a transitional song. And that also transitions into one of my favorite songs on the album called Cop. This is another song very reminiscent of Dog. I feel like you could put Cop and Dog on a single together and it'd be a really good combination. Cop, just like Dog, really, it's all about kind of social unrest, but it's just set against this extremely catchy chorus, and it's one of my favorites. The next 3 tracks, Beat Me Up, Everything Is My Fault, and That's on Me, kind of act as the album's self-reflective core. I mentioned earlier that this album has a very personal feel, and that's where these songs come into play. They're not really my favorite songs on the album, but I've got to admit there's some stuff going for it. On the track Everything Is My Fault, it's a much more slow and melody-driven number. And a notable thing I'd like to point out about it is that it's got a really good acoustic guitar drive behind it, which you don't normally see from this band. I really like the lyrics to the song That's On Me, because throughout the rest of the album, the singer has really been kind of just beating himself up and feeling sorry for himself. And on That's On Me, he really starts to take ownership of it. I feel like it's not really a concept album or a rock opera by any means, but I do feel like there's sort of an arc to what the lead singer is going through in this album, and That's On Me is sort of him just being like, alright, you know what? My bad. Just my bad. Track 12, Give Me a Knife, is just absolutely juicy goodness. It starts with the sound clip of kids who sound like they're on summer vacation or something, doing a sort of countdown, and it leads into this really fast, really furious song. And it's just the energy coming off of that introduction. It really just brings you back to the days of summer vacations, feeling like they could last forever. And I don't know. I mean, like I said earlier, I have a real soft spot for nostalgia, so this song just really hit a chord with me. It really brought me back to my childhood. And then finally, the album ends on the song I Can't Dream, which is just more self-reflection from the band. It's got a nice sort of groove to it. It's very slow, very melody-driven. Again, I feel like this album kind of takes on... There's a few songs on it that are just very stock, but overall, I really like the songs that experiment a lot with structure. Like I said, we have Sail to the Sun, which is... It's traditional, but it's got a lot of things going for it at the same time. I feel like the single Demon to Lean On and the title track Afraid of Heights are going to be two of the most popular songs from this album for good reason. I feel like they particularly represent the sort of more personal tone that Wavves is going for this album, and also have a lot of hooks that are going to keep old fans interested and the fans who don't necessarily want to see a dramatic change in style. But it's got enough of a change of style. Like I said, these songs are very Nirvana. They have a sort of Nirvana feel, so it's got a new enough style to keep anyone really hooked on it. Overall, I'm a little bit mixed on this album. I admire that the band went away from the overproduced glossiness of King of the Beach, but at the same time, as I said, there's a few tracks that just don't really stand out. A lot of the tracks are somewhat transitional, but I do think the band's headed in the right direction, and some of the tracks just really stand out. I know that the song Give Me a Knife is going to be one of my favorites of the year. And again, I really feel like the two songs Dog and Cop are just meant to be on a single as an A-side and a B-side. That's just meant to happen, make it happen. One thing this album doesn't have going for it, though, unfortunately, is the playfulness of some of the previous Wavves recordings. I'm talking about track titles mostly, and track titles for me really do make a difference when it comes to enjoying an album. On King of the Beach, you had really fun songs like Post Acid, Mickey Mouse, Super Soaker, things like that, you know, just based on the track list alone, it just really get your curiosity piqued up. Here, you know, it's sort of a little more stock. You have things like Everything Is My Fault, That's On Me, Paranoid, Cop, you know, the song titles don't really stick out as much to me at all. In the end, though, I think it's a good thing that the band stepped away from the eye-catching titles and went more on this is just what we're feeling at the time. As I've said again and again, this feels like a very personal album. The band worked for a full year on it to get it, you know, I've listened to several interviews with the two band members that say that it was a really trying experience to get this album out and really to self-finance it, but they wanted to really take their time on it. And I definitely think it shows in a few tracks, but at the end of the day, this album is not really too memorable. I think I think people are going to, in general, be a little bit disappointed by it compared to 2010's King of the Beach, just based on the fact that, like I said, King of the Beach is a lot more flashy, it's a lot more eye-catching. There's not as much to sort of grab onto. It's more substantial, but there's just not as much to really get your curiosity going. So overall, I'm going to give this album a solid 7 out of 10. There's definitely a few tracks that are going to be staples on my iPod for the next year or so. And if you're a Wavves fan, definitely check it out. Or if you're a fan of Nirvana or grunge, I don't really know much about the grunge genre, so forgive me for having Nirvana as my reference point for everything. And yeah, that's all I have to say about it.